I want to give a little insight into why back in our older times people used to stay to their certain communities, people groups, particular last names, ethnic backgrounds. So I'm going to do something that I know I don't have that many Chinese people on my platform. So we're going to use this as an example so that we're not triggering anybody. So back in the times of when people were being segregated to specific communities, let's look into Chinese heritage because they have a very wide varieties of people. So in these times, they used to have definitely different states had different types of people and different customs and different ways of doing life, and it worked for them and it created their abundance. And within each state, these things were very, very important, that you would continue the way you treated women or the way that you treated men and the way things worked, because that is what brought them their affluence. Now, they attributed a lot of the way they did things to their wealth. That was on the lower end of things. Now, going up and a bit higher, they really praise their ancestors and they give thanks to their ancestors. They have shrines for their ancestors to say thank you for being the ones that have paved the way before. Because if you understand and know energy, when you can actually go in and send gratitude into previous parts of your energetic heritage and in your DNA heritage, it will just depend on how enlightened your spirit is and which you will be able to do. So if you counted all of the different DNA heritages you've had over the many hundreds of thousands of lifetimes, or just 100, however old you are as a soul, it will go and vary all over the place. So the older you are, the more you learn to accumulate your own energetic line as the only one of importance. But when you're still working with your own ancestrally line, that means in this lifetime you get to put like a piece of the puzzle for the future lifetimes. Now, it's important to do that in this lifetime as well. However, when you get to be a certain soul level, you'll see things very, very differently. So you have both. You have an energetic line that is yours from your own soul birth, and then you have your DNA line. So now your DNA line is something that is very valuable when you learn how to build it. So when you learn how to reincarnate in your own DNA line, this is where the two of them mesh, and it is very beautiful. So when you stay to a certain family group or you stay to a certain small community, you can learn how to reincarnate in certain places and do certain things. So when you're praising your ancestors, even if you have lost the knowledge of the fact that that's you, you have integrated it into your line, and you will actually be giving yourself love, giving yourself praise and thanks for doing the hard things to have the life that you have now. So this was usually a practice that was very, very prominent in highly wealthy family lines. They did it in other lines too, but if, you're working all day and all of these things, you can't spend 5 hours praying in the day when you have to work, the tea fields or the rice fields or whatever the case may be. You'll send your blessings, yes, but, it's very different. The wealthier have more time to say thank you to the people behind them. So part of the work of the wealthy is to send energy back to the people who did the hardest amounts of work. So when you have certain family lines, you just learn that certain features, certain skin tones, Those are your people, right? So then you begin to say nobody comes in and messes with our family line, because we've created certain energetic principles to create and maintain wealth. Now, I want you to understand it's create and maintain. This is so important, because you don't bring somebody from out of the bloodline. This is when you're using DNA, to come in and bring whatever curses they have, whatever, problems they have, whatever, you know what I mean? So you have to understand something. It is so very highly important that you keep wealth with wealth. That is the whole point of segregation. And the reason why a certain family line won't marry someone who doesn't have a similar family line. So you need to get that. That's why incest happened in certain family circles. That's why people ended up looking alike, and sometimes even having, health problems, because they weren't getting enough quote unquote fresh blood. But you have to understand as well how energy works. When you've overcome something, you have that piece in the puzzle. So if you overcame it 100 years ago, then somebody new comes into the bloodline, then you've already overcome it. So it's like it's absorbed and gotten rid of. So you really have to understand how these things work. Now, a lot of people are going, oh my God, we can't mix races and all these things, our abundance is gone. Well, what fucking abundance do you have? Sorry, my language, but a lot of people believe that, you only have abundance in your heart. No. Your abundance in your heart shows in your ability to do life and overcome life. I know that I'm an extremely abundant woman, because wherever I go and whatever I do, I transmute it, I transform it, I alchemize it, I create something great out of it. Even if my specific soul has never encountered some of these things before, which most likely it has, then I have learned how to overcome it. I have gone into so many different places to create my wealth that it doesn't matter who comes in my doorstep. I can overcome that. And if they are binding with me, then I can overcome all of those things. Now, I'm only going to sit down and work hard on someone when I know that person is going to be a part of my future and my building. Why would I work so hard for someone who is a stranger, who goes back out and just dirties themselves up again? That does not make any sense if you understand how the world works, how energy works, how everything works. So back into, different heritage. You have to understand newer souls, they just don't have the experience. If you're a newer soul, you won't be as wealthy. There is no way you can possibly be wealthy when you're a newer soul. You haven't made mistakes. You haven't done a lot of things. You just don't have the layers to hold wealth. The older the soul is, the more wealth that can be carried. This has nothing to do with DNA. So when you have an old soul in your midst, sometimes it will look like it's not really a good person to have around you, when literally it is the best person to have around you, because they see and know things much differently, and they've experienced more wisdoms than you have ever thought is even possible. So you have to understand there is a method and a reason why people are segregative, and it's because they are protecting their wealth. They don't want to mingle with the scum of the earth. If every time you get anything, you pour it out back or you poison it, why would I give someone wealth when they have never looked after wealth before? If they're abusive to bodies, abusive to minds, abusive to souls, why would I give that person wealth, right? So this is the thing. This is so much knowledge to understand and know. People don't have time to learn all of these wonderful concepts that is taking me so much time to understand and know. They don't have time to do that. So it's easier to just say, okay, let's just go by these concepts, and then we continue to have wealth. That's why Chinese are always about wealth. They are wealthy people because they have a lot of wealth in their particular bloodlines. Now, there's also things you can tap into by doing certain things. So if you, for an example, in a Chinese heritage, were doing like Tai Chi or something. So certain elements of that Tai Chi would have been programmed to create wealth. So you can create wealth in your society's, your bloodline by performing certain things in your body. It will open certain portals and pull in certain secrets. And those secrets are the generations of wealth. And so the more secrets you have, the more things you've passed down and down and down and down and down. You're not trying to give that to another bloodline, to another soul line. So this is why a lot of people don't want to, veer from that. But here's the thing. If your life and your ways of living have nothing to do with, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about wealth accumulation, wealth, understandings and knowings, why on earth would you give that away? You would only want to attract more people with more wealth. Now, I have had this understanding that previously in my lifetime I have this thing called a twin flame bond. Now, twin flame bonds are something that they are connected to each other for an eternal amount of time. Now, what happens is these people are investing in each other each and every lifetime. So it is like creating a family of their own continually. Now, if someone was a wealthy type of bloodline, then someone who reincarnates as a twin flame bond, you would get a lot of wisdom and knowledge into it, right? And same so if you are a bloodline that has lost your wealth and you need to remember your wealth, then you would have to accept this twin flame bond in all parts in order to gain the wealth. Now, if you're going to look at something simple like the color of someone's skin and say that person doesn't have wealth like I do because I'm more ancient than them, then you have to realize you attracted a twin flame bond into your lineage because you are desiring wealth. And you are to accept all of that. And because of your rejection of that bond, your family line has been cursed. So what you were meant to get as wealth, you are now receiving as curses. So you have to realize you can attract wealth to you, but if you don't recognize it and you reject it, you will be cursed because someone took a chance on you. Someone gave you great wealth and you rejected it when you asked for it. So this is where the lines of family ties and family bonds and DNA bonds and all of these things come into play. So if you had a prophecy that someone was coming into your line, then you have to accept all that comes with it. It was meant to bring you great wealth in more ways than you know. However, because of your rigidity and your rejection, you might actually be rejecting the entirety of that wealth. If something is meant for you, it's meant for you. If you hear a story and you say that story can't happen, and you do everything in your power to make it not happen, maybe because you did everything in your power, that's what made it not happen. There's a reason for everything. And wealth is not in the eyes. The wealth is deep in the heart, and understanding that we are not physical beings, but we are spiritual beings. And if you were meant to have wealth, then you must accept all the pieces of the puzzle. So when people used to do this by bloodline only, it's because you were meant to keep the bloodline clean. But have you actually kept the bloodline clean in your actions, in your behaviors, in what you did for work, in how you conducted yourself? Because the reason that anyone wants to keep a bloodline pure is because they are trying to not bring in anything that will draw it down. But you have to understand that reality is built with the heart. The sight and the mind is what rejects things it does not know. The reason people protect their wealth is because to have the sight that I have, it destroys so many things. It destroys so many things to have what I have now. I have built a lot, but I have also destroyed a lot to have this sight. And you can't do this every generation. You really cannot. This is something so rare. Someone like me comes around once every couple thousand years or more. This is not normal. The sight and insight I have. So this is why someone would do that. But when you learn to see with your heart and learn to see through with love, you would look at someone and you would say, you know what? I know we've always kept our bloodline pure. And we don't quite understand and know why all of these things happen. But we also know that when we look in our heart and we see what it looks like to be wealthy in the heart, that person owns that. They might not look like us, but they own that. And this is why it is so important that you learn to see with your heart. You might have your physical restrictions, and you might say this is what needs to happen and this needs to happen to maintain our wealth. But then you also have to look at yourself. Are you maintaining wealthy habits and behaviors? What is godliness? Everyone knows on all elements of every culture and society, godliness is cleanliness, but that means cleanliness of heart. That means cleanliness of mind. How clean is your mind? Does it match your heart? Are you clean in your mind and in your heart? In the way that you conduct business. When someone does you wrong, do you clean your heart with forgiveness or do you hold a grudge? This is what I'm talking about. Cleanliness in every aspect, in every part of who you are, and then creating and maintaining structures, rituals, and habits like visiting the ancestral shrine every day and giving thanks on certain days of the lunar year. Not the calendar year, because that's not going to have any significance. The lunar year, because the lunar year is celebrated in every lifetime. So say on every full moon you gave thanks. That means if you created that, that means every ancestor that did that before you, you're tapping into that gratitude and thanks. You're bringing in wealth. What kind of rituals are you creating to create more wealth in your family, in your lifetime? And if you have none of these things, and you have hate in your heart, how dare you look at anyone and judge them? This is like that saying that, you look at someone else that has a piece of dust in their eye and you have a whole plank. You can't even see out of your eye. You're blind. Before you judge a next man, you must look at yourself. And if you have nothing good to offer, just sit down and be quiet. It's why you've never heard me speak about such things before. Because I'm working on myself, and I have been working on myself. My whole life, I've dedicated to being a better person, consistently, continually finding new ways and what have you done with your life? I'm not trying to judge you. I'm making you ask a question with yourself. When you didn't want to do it, what did you do? What do you follow? What do you idolize? What are the things that you look towards and want to become like? And who put that in front of your face? Like, how do you understand and know these things? You have to realize that the greatest things in life you do not understand until you go through them, and then you get them. They become an inner standing, a soul standing. The soul stands firm in these things, and most people are still on brain levels. And majority of the people that are on my page are spiritual people, because these are the people that I attract. So if you think you're a spiritual person and you've been living out of your mind, then it is time for you to start actually realizing the spirit matters more than the mind and the things you have in front of you and the judgments that you place on people. I send you love, and I know a lot of you have not sent me any, but that doesn't matter. I'm not you, I'm myself. I send all of you love. I send all of you so much love, that you would learn what love truly is, and learn to live from your heart, the deepest of your soul, to see things that you cannot see.